guy, and there's another factor. Yeah. He was from Catania. The mafia in Sicily, the headquarters is in Palermo. Yeah. The Catania mafia was kind of an offshoot of the main mafia in Sicily.
Yep.
So the reason he comes to Brooklyn is that Rapasardi knows that what has been set up, and that is by Joe Bonanno and Carmine Galante, had set up this heroin network with the Sicilian Mafia to import drugs through what was going to ultimately turn out to be the French Connection, through France and then into Brooklyn.
Yeah, this is before the Pizza Connection.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And when this was set up, Galante and Bonanno knew that, and they were not going to share the profits with the other four families. They knew it was going to be a problem when they found out. So they needed gunmen. They needed people to come over and be their henchmen. And the Sicilian Zips, that's where this whole thing comes from. The Sicilians sent all of these guys over. I'm sorry. The Sicilian guys came over knowing that there was work for them in America.
Interesting.
And Luigi was one of those people. What he does ultimately, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say ultimately, but as part of his work in Brooklyn, when he finally gets here, is he partners with a guy who they both transport phony and forged passports
to get
from Brooklyn to Canada.
Yeah.
The two of them had real passports, because Luigi comes to America on a legitimate passport. Yeah. So they were able to get into Canada legitimately. They would then meet up with all these Sicilian guys who were in Sicily, in Canada, waiting, and they would give them the passports, and then they would come in themselves. So that was one of the things that he had done. But Tom, the thing is that with Luigi, when he comes to Brooklyn, he faces a similar problem. He's told to go to Knickerbocker Avenue, to Bonanno, which is the center of the Bonanno family at that point.
Yes.
In Brooklyn. And he tells, and Rapasardi says, use my name. And he does. He goes to a coffee shop or a social club in Brooklyn, and he speaks to some guy. He didn't even know who the guy was. He just somebody, and the guy says to him, "What are you doing here?" And he drops Rapasardi's name. And the guy didn't know Rapasardi from a hole in the wall. So he realized that, maybe this is not the person I should speak to. Mm-hmm. He tells me that he goes back and he sees somebody now sitting in another day. He sees someone sitting in the club, dressed to the nines, Tom. He was dressed, great suit, tie, shoes, very important to Luigi. What shoes he wore. That was a big thing for him.
Yep.
And he said, Mike, I knew that was the guy I had to speak to. And it turns out the guy's name was Pino DeQuana.
Yeah.
DeQuana was sort of the underboss, if you want to call it that, to a guy named Peter Licata, who was the guy who ran Knickerbocker Avenue for the Bonannos. So he finally he walks over to DeQuana, who's reading the Italian paper, drinking. I always forget what the drink was. I don't remember if it was an espresso or a Sambuca. I don't remember.
Yeah.
And he offers to buy him another one. And basically DeQuana says, I don't need that. Who are you? And he drops Rapasardi's name, doesn't pay any attention.
Interesting.
He continues. He's on a mission now. And finally DeQuana agrees to talk to him. And what does DeQuana do? The same thing Rapasardi did in Sicily. He gives him the grunt work, the collecting money, collecting debts, that kind of crap.
Interesting.
And he does a great job. DeQuana, and I have to tell you this story because it's very important, I think, to learn about Luigi's mentality. He sets him up with a guy who was a member, one of these kind of hanger-ons, a guy named Paolo Laporta.
Yeah.
Okay? And Laporta becomes jealous of Luigi because Luigi's kind of stepping into Laporta's business now, his little role, but the bosses want them to work together.
Yeah.
So Laporta tells him.
Out of Philly, I think, right?
Laporta?
Yeah.
No, He was, as far as I know, he was a Brooklyn guy. He
Oh,
may
Avenue guy. Okay.
maybe a different guy.
Yeah.
So he tells Luigi, I'm going to show you the ropes. I'm going to tell you, who we're going to hit, who we're going to collect money from, etc. One day he tells him, look, there's a guy who owns a drugstore in another part of Brooklyn. He owes money to Licata. We got to go collect from him. And what we're going to do, because he's going to give us a hard time, is you're going to rob him. Here's a gun. I'm going to sit in my car outside. You go in, announce the robbery, steal the money, and then I'll be waiting for you, and we'll take off. Okay, that was how they were going to collect this debt from this guy, according to